So we are going to go over trig identities and using them to simplify expressions. So we have three different kinds of trig identities. We have reciprocal identities, Pythagorean identities, and quotient identities. So let's look at the first example. 1 minus cosine squared of theta over cotangent of theta times secant of theta. So if you look back, you know that cotangent of theta is 1 over tangent of theta, or you can use cosine of theta over sine of theta, and secant of theta is 1 over cosine of theta. So in this case, you would use the quotient identities in order to simplify it in a more easy way. So you would do cosine of theta, you would replace the cotangent of theta with cosine of theta over sine of theta, and secant of theta with 1 over cosine of theta. And when you do that, you can simplify it by crossing out the cosine of thetas because they cancel each other out, which would give you 1 over sine of theta. And so you are left with sine squared of theta over 1 sine of theta. And to get rid of the fraction, you would take the reciprocal of the bottom. So you would get sine squared of theta multiplied by sine of theta, which would give you an answer of sine cubed theta. Another example would be tangent of theta times cosecant of theta over secant of theta. So looking back, you know that tangent of theta is equal to sine of theta over cosine of theta, and cosecant of theta is equal to 1 over sine of theta. And when you rearrange that, you could get sine of theta over cosine of theta times 1 over sine of theta over secant of theta. You can also replace the secant of theta with 1 over cosine of theta, but we'll do that later. And so when you do that, you can cancel out the signs, and it would give you 1 over cosine of theta over secant of theta, and secant of theta is 1 over cosine of theta, so you would get this. And you want to get rid of the fraction, so you would take the reciprocal of 1 over cosine of theta, so you would get 1 over cosine of theta times cosine of theta over 1. And they all cancel out, so your answer would be 1.